Good morning and welcome to Tennessee Valley this morning. You may notice that our standard host, my wife Tracy, is not with us today, but we got Janae with us today. And so Janae is going to be filling in for Tracy. We have an amazing show. Tracy is so disappointed she's not able to be with us today, but Janae is here with us, and she's a rookie, but we're going to see how she can do. So good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. So Janae's going to help us. We're going to jump right into the show, and today what we're going to do is we're going to talk to Miss Esther Bauer. And Miss Esther Bauer, I've spent maybe the last day or so getting to know her. She has an amazing story, and I'm going to just, without further ado, we're going to jump in, we're going to talk to her. We're going to then, later on in the show, have a surprise for you and have someone else join the set, and we'll talk to him in a little bit. But now we're going to jump over and we're going to start talking to Miss Esther Bauer. So hello and
Hi.
Welcome to Cleveland.
Thank you so much.
So Miss Esther is coming to us as a Holocaust survivor and speaking to folks here in Cleveland. Tell us in general about you, and if you want to start from the early stages of your life and walk us through.
Well, I was born 89 years ago in Hamburg, Germany. My father was the principal of the Jewish girls' school. We had like 600 girls. Our curriculum was the same as public schools, only every day we had one lesson of either Hebrew or Jewish history, and I hated the school. My father was the principal, my mother was a physician, and she was the school doctor at the time, and it's terrible if you have both parents in school. I was told you have to be the best. I didn't want to be the best. You have to behave well. I didn't want to behave well. Well, you know how it is. Anyway, I'm here. And when I was 9 years old, Hitler came to power, and at first there was nothing different. I had two non-Jewish girlfriends whom I met on the street roller skating when I was 5 or 6 years old, and they were my friends all our lives till they died a couple of years ago. And the neighbors first greeted us very friendly, and then one day they didn't greet us anymore, but I was never accosted by anybody. I never had a problem. And I must say, I can only tell you what happened to me personally, not what happened to other people. There are thousands of other stories, probably much worse than mine. I was always somehow lucky. Anyway, in 1938 or so, my classmates started to immigrate, and there were always new laws from 1933 on. Jewish children couldn't go to public schools anymore. They had to go to a Jewish school. And my father was very orthodox, and in Judaism, you are only Jewish if your mother is Jewish, because you always know who the mother is, but you don't always know who the father is. But my father had to accept children whose mothers were not Jewish, because the Nazis made them all Jewish, even if they had a non-Jewish parent. And civil servants were fired from their jobs. Every day there were new laws. Jews had to give most of their money to the Nazis, and on the highest holiday, Yom Kippur, we were told in the synagogue, you have to go home now, get your radios and bring them to the police station. And that what my father said to my mother and me, you two go, I'm not going. Like I said, he was very orthodox. He only ate kosher, and I think in 1935 it was forbidden to have kosher meat, but he wouldn't touch anything. Later he allowed my mother and me to eat the non-kosher meat. My mother came also from a Jewish family, but she had never any Jewish education. She couldn't read Hebrew. She had never been to a synagogue. My father tried to teach her everything, but it didn't work. And I always thought my parents didn't fit together, but apparently they were quite happy. My mother made her doctor in 1922 after she was a Red Cross nurse in East Prussia, that's near the Polish border, and in 1934 she got a medal from the Hitler government thanking her for her services in World War I. And let's see, like I said, Jews, we weren't allowed to go swimming anymore, and I loved swimming. We weren't allowed to go to concerts or any public functions. I had never been to the circus. I think I was already 50 years old when I went the first time to the circus here in America. And one morning I come to a park which was a shortcut to the subway, and there's a big sign, Jews not allowed here. And I had always played in the park, and the gentleman who took care of the park knew me very well, but one day he said to me, "I'm sorry, Miss Esther, you cannot come in here anymore." And like I said, it got worse and worse. And in 1938 was the so-called Crystal Night, that the Nazis burned all the synagogues in Germany. My father came to my room in the morning. He had heard that something would happen. He didn't know quite what. And he went to a teacher of our school who was of Czech citizen. And anyway, my father said, "You don't have to go to school today?" Okay, fine. So then I didn't see it, but I heard later that they had robbed all the Jewish stores. They had taken the mannequins out of fashion stores and thrown them in the water. Hamburg has a lot of water. It has 3,200 bridges, more than Venice and Amsterdam. And he didn't come home that night. And the next morning, the Gestapo, you know what the Gestapo is, the secret police, came and wanted to arrest him. And my mother said, you see, he isn't here. I don't know where he is. He had stayed with that Czech family and came back then much later. And I always say, I wish they would have arrested him then, because then he might have wanted to immigrate. He said, "I've done nothing wrong, nothing will happen to me." And he was, of course, completely wrong. Anyway, after the Crystal Night, things got worse. The transports to the concentration camps started, and all my classmates immigrated. We were about 30, 40 pupils in the 9th grade, and at the end of the year we were only 3 left, 2 and me, and the 2 others were killed in Auschwitz later. Well, then one day we get the notice, on that day you have to be ready. Oh no, I have to go back. First of all, Jewish doctors were not allowed to work as doctors anymore. My mother had to take care of sick people at night, and I have a senior moment. Anyway, like I said, a Nazi wanted our apartment, and we had to leave our nice apartment and move to a so-called Jewish apartment. And that was a terrible place. We had no central heating, we had no hot water, and it was just awful. But my mother, having been in World War I, knew how to take care of an oven and a stove and all that. And we were not allowed to shop in regular stores anymore. We had to go to special Jewish store, and my baby nurse, who was not Jewish, was wonderful. She came to us at night. Yes, and when I was 16, we had to wear the yellow star on our clothing and also on the door to the apartment. And then one day we get a letter on that, and that day you have to be ready. You can take one suitcase each. You leave everything else behind. And we were put into a train, a regular train, third-class train, and we were driven to Terezin, or Theresienstadt in German. That was a former garrison town which was walled, and there were soldiers living there in barracks, like a four-sided barracks with a courtyard in the middle with only stones, and then there were private little houses, and the business people lived there. They all had to leave, and we came in there. But before us, the Czechs had started to come. They're Czech Jews, and they were the hierarchy because they got the best apartments, they got the best jobs. And anyway, we walk into this Terezin, and from one moment to the next, we were prisoners. And we had to put our luggage, we had to carry our luggage and put it in the courtyard. Needless to say, we never saw it again. And we had to go up on the third floor, the attic, and we walk by the kitchen, and there stands a young man. They're all Jews in there. And he looks at me, and I was 18, and I think not too bad looking, and I knew he would come after me. Well, we go up on this terrible attic, stone floor, dirty, no chairs, no tables, no mattresses, nothing, just the stone floor, and only what we had on our body and maybe a handbag. And we had to live there, sit there, sleep there on the stone floor, no mattresses, no pillows, no blankets, nothing. And and sure enough, this young man comes, doesn't speak a word of German. I don't speak a word of Czech. Well, he finally got somebody who interpreted for us, and I made up my mind I'm going to learn the language, which I did later. Anyway, he gave out the food in this courtyard, and he gave me right away 2 rotten potatoes instead of 1, and I couldn't even eat the one. The food was just awful at the time. Later on it became a little better. But this man saved my life. We became good friends, and after a few, my father, who had been told, yeah, I have to go back to Hamburg, he had to report to the Gestapo every week. And unfortunately, I must say, this Gestapo man was very nice to him. He didn't say, "You miserable Jew." He said, "Dr. Jonas, sit down." And he was at the station. I was there. I was 18, as I said. And I heard him say to my father, "Well, Dr. Jonas, don't worry. You will have your school again. You'll see how nice it is." And the next day, my father had to shovel coal. And he was not a physically trained man. He was a professor who only studied all the time. And after 6 weeks, he died. And I always said he died more of a broken heart than of that illness. So we are in Terezin, and my father has died, and I get double pneumonia. And my mother got a room with sick people. It was not a hospital, and she had hardly any medicine. She could only give them a good word or a piece of cotton if they were leaking, and she couldn't do much medically for them. But my newfound friend Honza was able to get me into a good it's like a hospital room, but not in a hospital. And this doctor could give me an injection, and after a few days I was much better. And one day I got high fever again, and my friend Honza went through the whole city, which he wasn't really allowed to do, and found the doctor, brought her back. She gave me an injection, and she said if she would have come 2 hours later, I probably would have been dead. So you see, I owe this man my life. Well, we were friends for 2 years. He also got me a nice job in an office. I didn't have to work in the fields or clean houses or latrines. Oh yeah, I have to come back. The first night in this awful barracks, they didn't have toilets. They had latrines, which meant wooden slats, men, women, children together. Oh, it was just awful. Anyway, and he had also gotten my mother and me a room with 5 other women. We were not with hundreds of other women together. And he was really very, very good to us. He could always steal some food and gave it to my mother and me. And so we were not as hungry as many of the others. And then one day, one of the terrors was that transports came in and transports went out. And Honza was told that he is supposed to go to Dresden, that's another city in Germany, to build up a new camp. Well, he left. No, we got married. You could get married, you couldn't live together, but we found ways anyway. And after 3 days, he left, and a few weeks later, the women of these men were told, you can go voluntarily after your husband. Well, I was married 3 days, of course I went. My mother was still alive. She said, stay here, stay here. I said, no, I always do what my insides tell me. And I left. Of course, saying goodbye to your mother is always very hard. And I didn't know that I wouldn't ever see her again. They transported her 10 days after me to Auschwitz and killed her. Anyway, we sit in the train and we think it's going to Dresden, and all of a sudden I see all Polish names, and I knew we were not going to Dresden, but to Auschwitz. And sure enough, we landed in Auschwitz, and there was this Dr. Mengele with his dog, and he said, you go right, you go left. And I went right, and a good friend who taught me Czech, we worked in the same office, went to the left. And we walked by some barracks, and women came out and said, throw us all the bread over that you have left over, they'll take it away from you anyway. And a friend next to me threw her bread. I had nothing left. She threw her bread over, and she was shot immediately right next to me. Could have hit me too. Anyway, we go into the shower. We knew all about Auschwitz, what happens there. The gas chambers, they look like showers. We come into the shower, and they shaved off our hair. They took everything away from us, and we were sure this is the end. Now comes gas. But water came. And they gave us very flimsy clothing, and it was October. It was already cold. We were put into a barrack, and they had these 3 beds above each other, always 12 girls, and only wooden planks. Again, no mattresses, no pillows, no blankets, nothing. Only the flimsy clothing we had on ourselves. And at night, if one wanted to turn, all 12 had to turn because there wasn't enough room. And the Nazis were crazy about counting. They counted us for hours and hours. We had to stand outside, and it rained on us, it snowed on us, and we had nothing on the head. We had no gloves, nothing. And this went on for a couple of weeks, and one day we were told, you go into the shower. Well, we thought this is the end. And at night, they took the people out of other barracks and drove them in little trucks to the gas chamber, and they came by our barracks and screamed and knew where they were going. And I'll never forget the smell of Auschwitz. It was just awful. Anyway, we were told, now you go into the shower. Well, we thought this is the end. But water came again, and again they gave me one pair of underpants, a summer dress, a very thin coat, wooden shoes, no socks, no stockings, no handkerchief, nothing on the head, nothing. And it was end of October, and it was very cold. And they drove us back into Germany, into a factory where we were to build airplanes. And we come in there, and oh, it's wonderfully warm. And they had beds, can't call them really beds, straw sacks, and always two girls on one bed. God forbid they would give you your own bed. And
Miss Esther, what we're going to do is we're going to take a bookmark right there. And what we will do is we'll come back after the commercial break, and we'll pick right back up with your new part of the story about where we're just transitioning now. So we're going to take a little break. Y'all stay with us. This is an amazing story we're hearing. It's an amazing period of history, and we don't have that many Holocaust survivors remaining, and so I'm thoroughly enjoying this. But Janae, you want to take us to commercial break? Tell them we'll be right back.
Sure, we'll be right back.
Logan Thompson, attorneys at law, have built a firm offering quality legal services to the people and businesses of Southeast Tennessee. We have achieved expertise in all areas of law in order to represent our clients in a manner they need, deserve, and have come to expect. Logan Thompson, with 9 attorneys and an extensive and competent support staff, is available to provide representation in various legal areas, including family law, Social Security benefits, personal injury, criminal defense, workmen's compensation, as well as business and complex litigation matters. At Logan Thompson, we have been building a tradition of legal services for over 40 years. We have developed the finest legal services and are proficient in providing you with representation you can trust. Give us a call at 423-476-2251 to schedule your free consultation.
Kyle Motors, 802 20th Street Southeast in Cleveland, is the place to find quality pre-owned cars and trucks. Kyle offers on-the-spot financing on all vehicles on the lot. Each pre-owned vehicle goes through a complete inspection to make sure each car and truck meets the Kyle Motors standard. Warranty and extended warranties available on all vehicles. Kyle Motors will sell you a car or truck that you will be proud to drive for many years to come. See Tony, Bill, Dale, James, or David and let them put you in your next quality pre-owned vehicle. Kyle Motors, 802 20th Street Southeast. Phone 790-7100.
At Crawford Pharmacy, we offer custom compounding. Our pharmacists are known for their attention to detail and unique expertise. So visit us at 2260 Chambliss Avenue, Cleveland, Tennessee. For personal assistance, walk right in or come up to our convenient drive-thru. Crawford Pharmacy, serving our community one person at a time.
Town Americana, where trucks are big and bold, and a handshake is firm, and your word is gold. Don Ledford Chevy Buick GMC in Athens is a $2,000 drive. Maybe you're coming from here or here. Doesn't matter. Buying a truck from Don Ledford in Athens will save you at least $2,000 bucks. Don Ledford Chevy Buick GMC in Athens, a $2,000 drive worth making.
I'll take that drive every time.
Featuring some of the South's most scenic views, the Mountain View Inn has been a landmark in the Cleveland community for over 40 years. Our executive guest quarters with flat screen TVs and excellent bedding will make any guest comfortable. Carrie's Restaurant is one of Cleveland's favorite, with one of the best buffets around.
Hello, and on behalf of the Hughes family, thank you for so many years of your business and your friendship.
This segment of Tennessee Valley This Morning is brought to you by Crown Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram, located at 511 South Lee Highway in Cleveland and 2120 Chapman Road, Chattanooga. For your next new or previously owned vehicle, make it Crown Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram, the better way to buy.
Supposed to look at that.
Hello, we are back with Tennessee Valley This Morning.
Good morning. We're going to pick right up where we left off. We're going to give as much time as we can to Miss Esther Bauer. She has brought us up through several years of her life, and we're going to let her pick right back up where she left off before break. So, Miss Esther, please proceed.
Thank you. So we come into this factory, excuse me, and it's wonderfully warm, and like I said, they had beds with a straw sack, and you had to pick another girl to share the bed with you. And I looked, I didn't know anybody was standing around me, and the one next to me, I said, "Do you want to?" Sure. We didn't know each other, so we shared the bed for 9 months. We were together. We worked on the same piece of airplane, and we were always together. Anyway, the work was very hard. We worked 12 hours a day, either from noon to midnight or from midnight to noon. One girl had an air hammer and one girl had a piece of iron, and that's how we had to go and get rivets out of the steam every hour. And the SS man in charge, he was a terrible man. He beat us with his leather belt, and we tried to avoid him wherever we could, but every hour we had to get the new rivets. And well, anyway, I had a very nice German elderly foreman who was very nice to me. He sometimes put a piece of bread in my station, and which was very welcome. And yeah, so we lie down in the bed the first night, and what shall I tell you? Bed bugs, fleas, lice, anything you can imagine. And I have that sort of blood that attracts those. I was scratching. It was terrible. Today you go to a drugstore and buy a salve. There was nothing. We could not, we had absolutely nothing, only what we had on our body. We had no handkerchief, we had no toothbrush, no toothpaste, no soap, no toilet paper. Imagine, it was horrible. We only had cold water. I don't remember how we washed and dried ourselves. I remember washing my underpants in cold water without soap and putting it on the heating that was next to my station. It was just terrible. And but then they built us barracks outside the city, and there we were at least rid of the bed bugs. And every morning we marched into the factory. We got 1 cup of ersatz coffee, which was made out of some grain. We got 1 piece of bread that had to last you all day. Once a week we got 1 little piece of margarine that was the weekly ration. And at lunch we got a watery soup, and for dinner we got a watery soup. We were so terribly hungry, we ate the grass from the floor. Anyway, from the ground. And like I said, we worked very hard, and we saw Dresden burning. We were about half an hour away from Dresden. And needless to say, I saw my husband never again. He was unfortunately killed, and my mother also. So we worked there for 9 months, and then toward the end there was no more raw material, and we had to stand there and file pieces of aluminum that it looked like we were working. The Nazis came and inspected us, and we were working, you know, but we didn't accomplish anything. But after 8 months or so, the hair had grown again. They never shaved it off again. And I made myself a comb, and this comb I still have. It's the only thing I have from that period, and it's in my safe in New York. Anyway, then one day we were told, you go into a train now, and we thought we are going back to Auschwitz. We didn't know that Auschwitz had been liberated in the meantime. We had no news, of course. And even though we heard the shooting from the Russians and from the Allies, and but we had no idea how the war was going. So we are in the train, and my friend Charlotte, with whom I shared the bed, and all we could do is talk, talk, talk. And she was from Czechoslovakia, and as we were driven through Czechoslovakia, and in the evening they always stopped the trains, she said, tonight I'm going to jump over and I'm trying to flee, come with me. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. The Germans will know I'm Jewish, the Czechs will know I'm German, it's a no-win situation. Okay, she jumped over, and I heard shooting, and I was sure that she is dead. Well, we drive further, and finally we ended up in Mauthausen in Austria, a terrible, terrible camp, a men's camp, a stone quarry where they killed thousands and thousands of men, not only Jews, there were homosexuals, there were even criminals, there were people from Greece.
Gypsies.
Gypsies, yes. They killed whomever they wanted to. And I think they killed altogether 10 million or more. Anyway, so we come to this terrible camp, and we had been in this train for 2 weeks and hardly any food, and you cannot eat much if you're so hungry. And the man who gave out the food was a colleague of my husband, and he right away gave me 2 portions of that watery soup, which of course I ate and got very sick. Now I had to share the bed again with another girl, and what shall I tell you? She died during the night, and all the vermin goes from a dead body onto a live body, and I was it again. It was just terrible. But one morning, my friend said, you know, the Nazis are gone. They're not here anymore. And I couldn't believe it, but they were really gone, and the Americans liberated us. But I was too sick to say hello to them. So the first American, they nursed me back to health, and the first American soldier I met said in the most beautiful Hamburg German to me, well, miss, where are you from? I said, from Hamburg. He says, me too. He was a refugee who had immigrated and was in the army. And yeah, and I have to go back to Freiburg. There were SS women. They were worse than the men. They watched over us all the time. And if you had to go to the bathroom, you had to stand at attention and say, may I go? And if she didn't want to, she didn't let you go all day. Anyway, those women were worse, like I said, worse than the men. And this American soldier went after one. He had found where she lives, and went and took one of her suitcases and put everything in there for me. I got a beautiful, I'll never forget, a green suit with a black fur collar, and I was in 7th heaven, you know, after all this time, having had only one piece of what you wore, and one dress. And well, then I went to the office of the Americans, and I had 5 years of English, and I wanted to learn American English, and I worked there whatever I could do, not for money, just voluntarily. And I said to one of the sergeants, tell me, where do you come from? He said, from Iowa. Now my geography wasn't very good. I said, is that near Illinois? He says, yes. I said, I have an uncle, the only brother of my father, lives in Peoria, Illinois. And he said, I'll find him for you. he used to work for a newspaper, and they found my uncle, and that's how I got his address, and we got in touch again. Well, after a couple of months, or not even that much, the Russians took over Mauthausen, that part of Austria, and we did not want to stay with the Russians, so a few friends and I decided to go to Linz, which is a smaller city on the Danube near Mauthausen. And we went there and got ourselves an apartment. I don't know anymore how we paid for it, but we got it. And American soldiers brought us food. You just couldn't buy food. Everything was on ration cards. And in Austria, you have to be registered with the police, like in Germany too, at all times. So I registered, of course, in that apartment. And I got myself a job in Linz with the American government for money. And I worked like 5 days a week. And my father had never allowed me to go to the movies for some idiotic reason. He once read that a movie house in Chicago burned down with children. This was just an excuse. He just didn't want me to go to the movies. Well, I did anyway, but he didn't know it. And well, one Saturday I'm working, and a friend of mine from Hamburg, a former boyfriend, had heard that I was liberated in Austria, and he had again a friend with a small truck, and they went from army post to beg for gasoline. You couldn't just buy gasoline. And they came to the border, Austrian border, and they said to him, we give you 24 hours to find this lady. Well, he comes to, he hears that Mauthausen is now in Russian hands, and he said, what would Esther do? Well, Esther went to the next American occupied city, which was Linz. And he comes there on a Saturday afternoon, goes to the police, and I'm registered in that apartment. But we had moved in the meantime to a DP camp where we didn't have to pay and got more food. Don't forget, there was no food at that time. It was terrible. The Germans and the Austrians were really hungry, which is fine with me, but you know, we didn't get any either. Anyway, I'm in the movie. He comes finally. He goes to this address. I'm not there anymore. He goes with my picture. But he was half Jewish. His mother was not Jewish, and she had, of course, everything saved. And he goes with my picture from store to store and says, do you know this lady? And one lady said, yeah, she lives up there on the hill in the DP camp. So he comes to the camp, as in the movie. Well, when I came home, I was very happy to see him, and I went back with them to Hamburg. In Hamburg, they didn't want to give me the apartment back that the Nazi had thrown us out of. I could have had one room in the apartment. I said, no, thank you, with that Nazi still in it. And I moved to Bremen and worked there for the Americans. And in 1946, my uncle had sent me an affidavit of support, and I came to America. In the meantime, I had found out that my mother was dead and my husband was dead, and I come to New York. A girlfriend had found me.
Let's take a break right there, Miss Esther. You just got to America, and we're going to pick up with that when we come back from the break. Stay with us. We're going to come back, and we're going to have someone else join the set with us. Don't turn those dials.
Town Americana, where trucks are big and bold, and a handshake is firm, and your word is gold. Don Ledford Chevy Buick GMC in Athens is a $2,000 drive. Maybe you're coming from here or here, doesn't matter. Buying a truck from Don Ledford in Athens will save you at least $2,000 bucks. Don Ledford Chevy Buick GMC in Athens, a $2,000 drive worth making.
I'll take that drive every time.
At Crawford Pharmacy, we offer custom compounding. Our pharmacists are known for their attention to detail and unique expertise. So visit us at 2260 Chambliss Avenue, Cleveland, Tennessee. For personal assistance, walk right in or come up to our convenient drive-thru. Crawford Pharmacy, serving our community one person at a time.
Kyle Motors, 802 20th Street Southeast in Cleveland, is the place to find quality pre-owned cars and trucks. Kyle offers on-the-spot financing on all vehicles on the lot. Each pre-owned vehicle goes through a complete inspection to make sure each car and truck meets the Kyle Motors standard. Warranty and extended warranties available on all vehicles. Kyle Motors will sell you a car or truck that you will be proud to drive for many years to come. See Tony, Bill, Dale, James, or David and let them put you in your next quality pre-owned vehicle. Kyle Motors, 802 20th Street Southeast. Phone 790-7100.
Logan Thompson, attorneys at law, have built a firm offering quality legal services to the people and businesses of Southeast Tennessee. We have achieved expertise in all areas of law in order to represent our clients in a manner they need, deserve, and have come to expect. Logan Thompson, with 9 attorneys and an extensive and competent support staff, is available to provide representation in various legal areas, including family law, Social Security benefits, personal injury, criminal defense, workmen's compensation, as well as business and complex litigation matters. At Logan Thompson, we have been building a tradition of legal services for over 40 years. We have developed the finest legal services and are proficient in providing you with representation you can trust. Give us a call at 423-476-2251 to schedule your free consultation.
Featuring some of the South's most scenic views, the Mountain View Inn has been a landmark in the Cleveland community for over 40 years. Our executive guest quarters with flat-screen TVs and excellent bedding will make any guest comfortable. Carrie's Restaurant is one of Cleveland's favorite, with one of the best buffets around.
Hello, and on behalf of the Hughes family, thank you for so many years of your business and your friendship.
This segment of Tennessee Valley This Morning is brought to you by Crown Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram, located at 511 South Lee Highway in Cleveland and 2120 Chapman Road, Chattanooga. For your next new or previously owned vehicle, make it Crown Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram, the better way to buy.
Welcome you back. If you are just joining us now, we have the pleasure of Miss Esther Bauer being here, and she had just paused in her story where she had just gotten to America.
Right. So a girlfriend from before the war had found me in Bremen by letter, and she said if I come to New York I can stay with her and her family as long as I wanted to. So I'm on the boat and she picks me up and we go to her house in Washington Heights in New York, and her mother had a wonderful dinner, and after dinner she said to me, would you like some ice cream? I said, yeah, I hadn't seen ice cream since I was a little girl, and at that time on every corner on Broadway was an ice cream parlor, and we go there and sit down. I order by banana split or whatever it was, wonderful. And in walked 2 young men. One was her boyfriend, of whom I didn't know yet, and the other one was his buddy from the army. And the buddy asked me, are you the girl that just came from Germany? I said, yeah, this morning. He said, oh, I pictured you quite differently. You don't have pigtails. No, I couldn't have had, because they shaved off our hair. And you speak English? I said, yes, even though with an accent, but I speak English. And then he said, do you think this will happen again? I said, absolutely. I don't know in which form, and it may be completely different, but it will happen again. And what shall I tell you? After 2 years, we got married, and I was married 46 years. I have 1 son and 2 grandchildren, and my husband died almost 20 years ago. And I worked in international advertising, which was very interesting, and I could use my German language for that. And anyway, we worked very hard. And in the beginning, I met a friend from Hamburg who had immigrated in time. And she said, I live in a girls' hotel. If you want the other bed, my girlfriend had just gotten married. Her girlfriend had just gotten married. And I said, sure. So I moved in with her, and she taught me every payday you save X amount of dollars. And if it is only $1 a week, when I made $28, you save. And I did that all my life, and today I can live nicely. So, yeah, and like I said, he died 20 years ago, and about 10 years ago, I met my friend Bill.
Yes, we had a good time talking to Bill. So, tell us about Bill. So, you all met through a mutual friend, and Bill was living in New York, obviously. And Bill, what did you do before you retired?
I was a tool and die maker before I retired.
And you started out part-time?
Yes.
And all of a sudden it grew 30-something years, right?
It was 37 years. It was supposed to be a temporary job, and it lasted 37 years until I retired.
So last night at dinner we were sharing some conversation, and I just wanted Bill he has many great stories, but I wanted Bill to talk a little bit about some of his experiences that were really unique. I should say, Sir Bill, tell us that little piece of trivia.
Well, let me start out. I was born in Germany, came to the United States with my father and mother, and also my brother, the four of us, in March 1939. And we lived in New York, and I went to school, and my father and mother, they both had to go to work. But, and then when Pearl Harbor happened, in 1941, I didn't feel bad, but I automatically became not just I was not an alien, but became an enemy alien, because I was born in Germany and I was not an American citizen, so I was an enemy alien. But I was never bothered. We were never bothered by anybody. No FBI came around to check up on us. Nobody believed that we're saboteurs, you know. So we were always okay. So then when I turned 18, I wanted to volunteer for the armed services. And I was told, you cannot volunteer because you are an enemy alien. So, I couldn't, I was disappointed, but there's nothing I could do about it. But I did register for the draft. And then 6 months later, I was drafted. And I was in the American Army as an enemy alien. And nobody ever questioned anything that I wouldn't be loyal. I had basic training in Fort Bragg with the artillery. And after basic training, we were shipped over to Africa and what they called the replacement camp. And when they needed new soldiers in the war zones, like in Italy at that time, they pulled them out from that replacement camp. And while we were there, and I was still an enemy alien in Africa in the American Army. So, but at that time they had a man from the State Department travel from England to North Africa to India, and he was authorized to make anybody a citizen who's not a citizen in the armed services. So I became an American citizen in Africa. Anyway, and then I went to Italy, and I was in a combat unit, and we were at well, most people don't even want to hear about it. We were at the monastery in, what was it? I can't think of the name now.
Algeria?
No. All right, we were there, and we were fighting, and we got stuck in the snow. And then finally, on May 15th, all across the peninsula of Italy, on the right side were the British, in the middle were the French, and on the left side were the American forces. We were attached to the French in the middle, And all of a sudden, at 9 o'clock at night, all the guns went off across the whole peninsula. I never heard noise like that before. And then we started to push for Rome, and we were successful. And we went as far north as as Siena, town of Siena, which is just short of Florence. And there we were pulled back. We went back to Naples. We got under those flat bottom boats, the LSTs, and with all our guns, with all our equipment, and went to invade southern France. A very fancy place, the French Riviera, Saint-Tropez. We chased the Germans all the way north, and they finally made a stand in the Jura Mountains in France, and which was near the Swiss border. And as we advanced, we took the wrong turn at one time, and we wound up at the Swiss border, and the Swiss guards were standing there telling us you can't go any further. So we with our big guns, and he with his pistol, he stopped us. Anyway, we turned around, went the other way, and we got into Alsace, fired into Germany across the Rhine. We did that, and we kept going north. We went to Lorraine. From Lorraine, we went into Germany, and we crossed the Rhine River on pontoon bridges in Mannheim, and went further and further, and finally wound up near the Dachau, near the concentration camp. And at that time, the war was over. So that's my experience. And I received a letter about 3 years ago now from, I got a telephone, excuse me, I got a telephone call from the French embassy, consul, from the French consul in New York, asking me to come and see them at the consulate with pertinent papers from the army. So I went there with a copy of my discharge papers and a letter that I wrote, and they looked it over and they said it was very good. They like what they see, and they said we'll have to send it to the French embassy in Washington. They have to approve it also. So they sent it to the French embassy, and they approved it. Then it had to go to France, to Saint-Cyr. This is like West Point in New York, where they train French officers. They had to approve it. Somebody there had to approve it also, I guess the generals. And then it had to go to one more place, what they called where they had to check everything over again, make sure everything is correct and authentic and there's nothing phony about it. And they had to approve it too. I don't know if this was a civilian organization or it was an army, or an army's organization, but they approved it also. Then in October of 2010, I got a letter from the French consulate in New York stating that I should come to see them. I was awarded by the order of the President of France, Nicolas Sarkozy. I was awarded the Legion of Honor, Légion d'honneur, which I understand is the highest honor that they give out. So on November 11th, which is Armistice Day, and we used to call it Armistice Day, but now it's called, in the United States, it's called Veterans Day. They had a ceremony where 18 of us received that prestigious French medal. And we were all made chevaliers. Well, I'm a chevalier now. That's the French word for being a member of the Legion of Honor. And a few other people got the same thing, and I can only mention a couple because this particular medal was originated by Napoleon Bonaparte in 1802, and in 1807 he gave that medal to Tsar Alexander I, and many other people got it, of course. And then I found out that the two other Americans got it from World War II, General MacArthur and President Eisenhower. So we're all in the same company.
Amazing, amazing history. And Miss Esther and Bill are here in Cleveland with us visiting. There are walking textbooks. They are walking history, and we've had the pleasure today of spending an hour sharing their story, just a brief tidbit of their story. It's so important for people like any of us to know this information, but for students your age, Janae, to hear this, how do you feel? We've got about a minute or two left, but how do you feel about being able to hear this history?
It's amazing because you can read a textbook, but to get a real life perspective, it's nothing like it, and it's really eye-opening, and I loved having Miss Esther and Mr. Bill here. It was just wonderful.
It is.
And we love to be here.
Thank you.
We, Janae was adopted earlier today by Miss Esther, so now she has an honorary grandmother here. So it's been such a pleasure to have them with us and to hear all of this neat information. So as we look back on history, we can't forget about the past. History is history. There's always a lesson to be learned. And I have been truly blessed, I think, to hear their story and to just learn. What do you think about today?
It's been amazing. It's, like I said, eye-opening, and just hearing the differences, because everybody knows about Anne Frank or the Nazis or Hitler, but it's so much more than that. There were human souls that were lost and that were put through trials and endurance, and people like Miss Esther that just kept on moving, and people who actually wanted to make a change like Mr. Bill. It's just amazing, really.
So I'm sure that Tracy has missed out
Definitely.
on being able today.
I'm so sorry we didn't meet her.
That's right. Bill had something else?
No, I just wanted to add something that I couldn't think of the name before. The place where there was heavy fighting was going on was Monte Cassino.
Yeah.
Monte Cassino.
Yeah, I thought of it afterwards.
So I'm sure that the general public viewing will be increased because of the story that we had today, but also because now that you're a movie star, a TV star, and you're on air, that the ratings will surely increase, and we'll have to make sure that your mom knows that you were the reason for that.
Oh, definitely. All you viewers out there, please email in and make sure you tell Mom that I'm a very much better co-host.
So, till next time, we appreciate all of you viewing today. We appreciate Miss Esther and Mr. Bill being with us today. Read your history, be familiar with your past, and appreciate what you have. Thank you for all that you do, for watching the show, and until next time, take care.